inherited, and we will be talking about the going forward plan as we get to the point when we submit our budget to the legislature in about another month or so. But today I want to make sure that the whole state of condition of the budget going forward for fiscal year 26. But let's start out and talk a little about some of the appointments. It takes a very talented team to make West Virginia that shining state in the mountains. And that's why we have a number of just outstanding people that I'm going to mention today for other cabinet nominations. I'll start out with Dr. Matthew Herridge as the Secretary of Commerce. Matt has a deep history as a business owner, and he's been wildly successful for the last 25 years. He entered the business world, interestingly, after a 10-year career in clinical psychology at the Charleston Area Medical Center. So he's a doctor. He'll be coming in as the Secretary of Commerce, obviously pending consent with the Senate. We are also announcing that we're going to be retaining Nick Preservati, who would be for the Deputy Secretary of Commerce position. Nick has done a lot of outstanding work, and I think he'll be able to continue to perform admirably for the citizens of the state. We are announcing that Chelsea Ruby will be retained as the Secretary of Tourism. I think many people have said so many incredible things about her, the work she's done to put West Virginia tourism on the map. I think she's done an outstanding job, and that warrants her reappointment. She's led the Department of Tourism for the past 8 years. Then for transportation, we are sending to the Senate WVDOT, and his career has spanned the gamut. He's actually been a designer, a construction inspector, an area supervisor, a staff engineer, regional construction engineer, director of contract administration, chief engineer of construction. Deep experience. I have great faith that Todd is going to be a terrific Secretary for Transportation. Joining Todd as the Deputy Secretary will be an individual by the name of Michael Demers, and he has over 17 years of experience managing transportation programs across the country. Michael also has deep and strong educational background, earned a Master's of Urban Planning degree from Harvard and a bachelor's degree from Tufts University. I think he's going to bring a lot to bear in that deputy position. Then we are announcing the Secretary of Health position, Dr. Arvind Singh. Dr. Arvind Singh brings extensive experience in healthcare leadership and also has done a lot of work in acute care, behavioral, ambulatory care. He has a senior position now at the University of Maryland Shore Regional Health. Before that, he worked as a chief operating officer in a Louisiana behavioral health network. Dr. Singh holds master's degrees from Brown University in the healthcare leadership, Penn State in business administration, and George Washington University in public health. All of these are individuals who will be joining the administration beginning either now or over the course of the upcoming weeks. These are terrific picks. In addition to these announcements, we're announcing that we're going to seek legislation to consolidate various departments and agencies. Today, we're announcing that we're planning to work with the legislature to merge Department of Commerce and Department of Economic Development into one department. We'll also be seeking legislation to combine arts, culture, and history with the Department of Tourism. These are not going to be the end of the consolidation proposals. You should expect that there will be a number of additional proposals in this area in the upcoming weeks, and this is a sign of the type of efficiencies that we're looking to bring to bear in the management of state government. And those efficiencies are even more important in light of what we're going to be talking about next. The era of big spending is over. It's over in West Virginia. The time for spending beyond our means is over. I think West Virginians sent a message when they sent Donald Trump to the White House in November. I think the same message was sent here in West Virginia when they elected me as governor. And that's why we're here today. On Tuesday, I announced a series of executive orders to address our state spending and to begin better driving economic growth to lift our economy up. So we're no longer 48, 49, 50 in the economic rankings. I want to be transparent and accessible to you. That's why we're here. And while we only have to continue to talk about these issues, but we're going to level set. We're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about next year's budget projections and what we have found as of January 13th. Now, it's important that when we talk about the budget, we're talking about what we've inherited. It's not factoring in any new spending priorities or any proposed additional tax cuts. It's not reflecting what it may cost to fix some of the problems that we've publicly talked about. People have talked about PEIA, or if you're talking about money for teachers. This is what we've inherited. This is where we are day one of the new administration. So putting these numbers together, we've worked with a team. As you may recall, we've been able to bring in Mike McCown, who's the budget director, who I think has done a lot of work in this area, has deep experience on these matters. And Eric Nelson is our revenue secretary. So they've been involved with that. I've already had 3 two-hour meetings working on these issues. We're going to focus on the budget. It's one of the most important priorities for any governor and for the state. Here's what we're seeing. For fiscal year 2026, the period between July, the state will have a projected deficit of approximately $400 million, and that number is projected to rise more and more in the out years. This is where we stand on day one. Here's what we're seeing driving the projected deficit. There's been a heavy reliance on one-shot revenue, only $252 million in one-shot revenue to pay for ongoing obligations. Of that $252 million, $153 million is from Medicaid alone. It's a significant part of it. That shortfall in this year's budget is temporarily being replaced by a one-time provider tax cash balance. So from our perspective, this is a big part of the whole structural problem with the budget that's we're going to begin to address. Now, all the issues with the budget are not going to be handled on day one. It took a while to get to this problem. We're going to have to do a lot of work to change it. Second driver of a number of these issues, educational costs. And that continues to rise, and we're going to have to address that. That'll be important. Education's the cornerstone for the kids in our state. We have to make sure they get the best type of education, but there have been some increases, and we have to make sure that's factored into the budget. Then we have PIA. As you know, there have been significant budget challenges affecting that program, whether it's increases in cost of prescription drugs, the change to pay Medicare providers at 26 estimates based upon what we've most recently heard, said that there'd be a proposed 14.7% increase in premiums. That's in part because of the mandated 80-20 split that's under state law. I mentioned some of these issues not to express, a problem or a concern or say what we're doing or not doing, just to point out some of the structural problems that we have with it. There will need to be some important choices and prioritization to make sure that we're putting the needs of the citizen first. We're not going to talk about and address all of the solutions to these problems. You will be able to see that when we submit the budget in the next month to the legislature. We're working on it. I promise you, as we keep learning more, we're going to come to you. We're going to provide that information to you. I know that I remain very optimistic that despite a lot of the big spending that's occurred, West Virginia is going to be that shining state in the mountains. I know that we're going to have an opportunity to develop policies that grow and help our budget and help ensure that our citizens have a higher standard of living and we can afford the right tools to lift up educational attainment. But I also want to be honest with you and set the stage as to where we are on January 13th, 2025. We've obviously already taken some steps to begin tightening the belts and have areas for reduced spending. I mentioned a few today. We've mentioned items from the earlier executive orders. But we're also going to have to work hard to deal with these structural problems. I'm also announcing today that we are reinstating the 6-year budget projections, which we will release when we provide the budget to the legislature. I believe that these 6-year projections are the short and long term. So just go through and repeat the highlights. Our administration inherited a $400 million projected deficit for fiscal year 2026. That number is projected to grow into the future. There are significant structural problems with the budget. These problems weren't created overnight. We're not going to be able to fix them immediately, but we're going to get to work, as we have over the last few days. We're beginning to also take the steps to address these issues through the early executive orders, through the deserve nothing less. The final point to reemphasize, I am wildly optimistic about our state's future because we're going to be able to make the right decisions to address these budget challenges and let everyone know West Virginia is on the rise. But we're going to be honest about the state of affairs is where we are now, and I'm asking every citizen to identify wasteful practices in government or to help in our process to make government more efficient and more accountable. So, busy week. I know technically it's day 4, third day after the inauguration, and I know I have a few minutes, 15 minutes for questions. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Governor, I don't expect you to throw the previous administration under the bus, but it's 3 or 4 weeks ago I asked former Governor Justice, on the virtual briefing about what they were looking at as far as fiscal year 2026, as far as any type of budget deficits. He told me point blank no. So this is all stuff that you have found coming in.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I mean that's the big difference between
sure.
People, no, we're not going to face anything versus you're saying that it could be.
Yeah. Look, I think I'm not going to talk about any individuals. I want everyone to be successful in their positions, but we went through and had a diligent process to make sure that we're accounting for things. Keep in mind when we talk about that number, that's not factoring in additional tax cuts. It's not factoring in anything that may pertain to teachers or potential fixes to PIA. I want everyone to know that. That's where it stands as if the baseline just continued to go forward. So we have been working with some outstanding people who I think have deep expertise in these budget numbers, and we feel very confident that this is where it stands today. I can't speak to where people may have thought it would have been in the past. I can tell you that we do believe that there are significant structural problems with the budget, and I'm committed to fixing them.
Well, we're going from a rocket ride to a $400 million hole. Where do you have to cut?
Well, most importantly, I want everyone to know this is as of January 13th. This is the beginning. So whatever may have happened, I'm focused on from January 13th on. This is what we inherited, a $400 million projected deficit for 2026. So what I will say is this, we're working hard. We've got a great team of people, and we're working hard on the budget. We know that that's one of the most important frameworks that the governor can provide to the legislature and for the people of our state. So I think you're going to be expecting to see a number of different proposals, not only in 30 days, but we'll be providing information along the way. For example, Bob, when we talked today about consolidation, I'm looking for different ways we can wring efficiencies out of every single department. That's why we asked all of the departments to find those efficiencies beginning on day 1. Leah.
Thank you. My question is about those consolidations you mentioned. Yeah. Do you have an estimate at this point of what the potential savings might look like from those consolidations, and will that involve likely cutting positions that are currently filled? And if so, how will you make those determinations?
So we're going through that process now. We don't have budgetary estimates on those yet. We do believe that it will result in some cost savings with some of the Well, we're going to be looking at everything. Once again, that's a $400 million projected budget deficit that we inherited. without getting to any of the spending priorities or tax cuts or different issues for the future, right? And I've been very clear that I want West Virginia to be even more competitive with all the states that we touch, but we're going to have to look at this, and it's going to take a while for anyone to go through this. And of course, we also want to work with the legislature and hear from the public about their perspective as well. That's important. But we're going to go through that process. We're going to be diligent, and we're going to, from time to time, try to update you on what's going on.
Governor, just a point of clarification
Yeah.
first. The deficit, the $400 million deficit, is that for budget year starting July 1, 25, or is
Correct.
that for budget year ending this
No,
June 30th?
no, not for this year. We're still expecting that we will meet budget goals for this year based upon everything that we're seeing. So I want to be very clear about that through June 30th. It would be the year projected, the baseline, beginning July 1st, 2025, and going to June 30th, 2026.
And then on the consolidations, I know you mentioned two specific consolidations here today. For the average person at home that just hears, hey, that's just another government alphabet agency, what do these consolidations mean for that average family at home?
I think what it means is that you have a state government and a governor who's prioritizing bringing efficiencies to bear. And when state government runs in a leaner manner, when it's more efficient, it's more accountable, then taxpayers save money. When taxpayers save money, they have more money to go out to dinner, they have more money to buy clothes, take care of their kids, go shopping. I think at the end of the day, we have to realize we're the steward of the taxpayers' dollars. This is the people's money. It's not state government to just kind of lord over things and spend money all the time. We have to always put the taxpayers first. That's certainly what we're going to do.
Do you think you'll have to revise the formula? Because obviously you're going to make it to the end of this fiscal year, you believe, without any major problems. But it met the requirements to cut the income tax. If this had been, if they had been looking at a $400 million hole next year, then maybe a different decision would have been made.
Well, I'm looking forward to collaborating with the legislative leaders, and I think that there are going to be opportunities for us to work together. But I do believe that West Virginia needs to continue to emphasize reduction in taxes to become the lowest in the region. I'm just pointing out that we have a lot of challenges in front of us in order to get to that point. But I'm committed for West Virginia to be more competitive. I just want to make sure everyone knows where we stand today. Many people here may remember during the debate last fall that I said very clearly, I support the tax cuts, but you may also remember I said, I think we should pay for them. Obviously that didn't happen, but now we're going to, a lot of what you saw in recent years was the federal money coming in. I think that's very, very clear.
Hi, Governor.
Hey, Amelia.
Hi. Can you talk any specifics about the health department budgets, what you're finding so far, and is there any possibility that that will be one of the consolidations that we could see between those three separate branches?
So we're going to be looking at all the different departments for efficiencies. I think that's important to do, but we're not in a position to report that at this time. But I can promise you this. I know that yesterday I visited one of the departments, and I personally went over there. I'm going to go over this afternoon. I'm personally going to go and spend a lot of time because I think the public deserves that. We want to be active, and we want to make sure that we're learning about all the problems. And also, I want to have the opportunity to personally thank our state workers. I think our state workers don't serve as Attorney General. I worked really hard to try to treat our staff well, and I know that I want to do the same thing. There are approximately 25,000 state workers today. I'm not going to be able to have a chance to see all of them coming up, but I certainly am going to go visit every single department and spend time with them, and I think there are a lot of good people helping us out.
Governor, a number of your executive orders...
I'm sorry, can you mention your name?
Duncan Slade, Mountain State Spotlight.
Sure, go ahead.
30 days,
Yeah.
60 days, 45.
Publicizing what we're learning about them, and I think that's important. That's part of the goal. When we learn what's happening, we'll be talking about it. I don't know the form, the mechanism for all these different pieces, but I certainly want to share. That is what I'm working to do. That's why I'm here today, where folks are going to have the opportunity to ask me questions, and I can provide information to you.
So you said you'll share the findings, but maybe not the actual report?
What I'm saying to you is we're going to be very accessible. We're going to provide a lot of information. Look, I get paid by the taxpayers, right? I take that really seriously. So I want to give you as much information as I can as we get stuff along. So especially as we get the findings, we want to share that with you. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of work done in the next 90, 100 days, the next few years, and we're going to try to update you as much as we can.
Keelan Bailey, Western Public Broadcasting.
Hey.
During the campaign and just recently, you've talked a lot about energy policy as far as the kind of bright economic future. Is severance tax policy at all part of these discussions as part of the budget?
I'm sorry, the question is severance tax policy?
Is severance tax policy changes or any discussions around that, is that happening when you're having these discussions about the budget and the state revenue?
Look, I mean, we're looking at every single item. One of the things that happened in previous years is that you saw significant revenues generated, kind of more one time. The severance taxes brought in a lot of revenue for the state, and a lot of that money got spent. And so we're obviously going to be analyzing that to see what the projections look like. But, you know, we care a great deal about our coal, our natural gas, our energy resources, and we want to make sure that any policy we're doing is bring the best out of them. We need more energy jobs. We need more opportunities to tie in energy to other sources, whether it's to advanced manufacturing, technology, data centers. I think there are a lot of opportunities to create additional jobs and economic benefits for the citizens of our state. So we're going to be looking at all those issues. I would say that's one of the reasons why we've put in place this Council of Energy, Infrastructure, and Competitiveness, because we're looking to drive growth. The way that we're going to get out of things, we're going to have to grow. We're going to have to grow our workforce. We're going to have to grow so that we're stronger. That's how we're going to succeed.
Can you clarify a little bit? You said that there might be some structural issues right now. I mean, obviously, we have a projected deficit for next year, but right now, this year, you said that there's...
You know, short-term spending that was done, not built into the structure, right? So, you know, for instance, you could always transfer through supplemental appropriations or other items. You can pay for something. But let's say there's a program, maybe take corrections, for example. We all know that there have been a lot of problems with corrections. When you pay for that one time, I'm not being critical, but if you start to build a large percentage of your money off of one-shot revenue, what happens is when you get to year two, you have what we're talking about here. Well, then what are you going to do? Are you going to stop all the programs that you had in place? You have to answer those questions. That's what I mean with the 252, and I had the Medicaid number of 153 million. So we're obviously going to be looking very closely at that. Now, to be clear, I do believe that we're going to be able to make the decisions, and we're going to achieve, and we're going to grow. But I want to make sure everyone knows where we stand on January 13th, 2025.
Hey,
Stephen.
Change the pace for real quick.
Yeah.
The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression has raised some constitutional issues with the executive order on DEI. Mm-hmm. They kind of feel it's a little too broad, that it could actually affect possibly the type of discussions that go on in college classrooms and that sort of thing. They're talking other states have similar DEI bans that don't really go that far. Is that something you're looking at and willing to kind of maybe amend to deal specifically with that free speech issue?
You know, it's funny. I've heard some of the critiques coming from some of the most recent issues, and I would say this. People on the DEI front, people may not realize, so we were very involved on the litigation analyzing this U.S. Supreme Court decision several years ago, the admission case that came down, you may recall, from the U.S. Supreme Court dealing with Harvard, North Carolina. And so when we analyzed that, we knew that there were some potential issues. And in fact, some may remember when I was down the hall, we were looking at the FBI and a number of other issues where there were efforts to do DEI on recruitment and retention. So based upon that decision, we believe we're on strong ground. And same for everything we do. We take the time to try to do it right. And I think our batting average, at least my batting average down the hall, you know, no one's perfect, but it was a pretty darn good batting average. I'm hopeful we're going to see that same batting average continue or get even better.
Governor, on highways, you announced your department secretary today. You also announced a deputy secretary. What is your vision with the Department of Highways? What are you looking to see? Transportation, I apologize. What is your view of the Transportation Department? What are you wanting to see from that department?
Look, I want to commend Governor Justice when he did the Roads to Prosperity. I thought that was very positive. And I think that a lot of the infrastructure needs were not addressed for a long period of time. So I've always publicly given him credit on that. I know that there's been a lot of spending in the transportation area. One thing we're looking at is how many dollars we're going to actually have left to spend in that area, because a lot of it has been obligated. That may be a conversation we come back and have with you over the next few weeks. But we obviously want to make sure that we're keeping our roads, our bridges in a safe and drivable manner. I can't tell you on the campaign trail how many times I would talk to people talking about the issues, the congestion, whether in north central West Virginia, Montague County, Eastern Panhandle, all across West Virginia. People care about the highways programs. I know that there's been some discussions, there's been some shortage of engineers. There are issues that need to get addressed within the Department of Transportation. That's why I'm really pleased with the team we have. See, I look at this and I'm very optimistic, because while there are big challenges, we're making the decisions, and getting personnel, I think, could meet the challenges and the demands that we have.
And then one other question on appointments quickly. There's a lot of appointments you have still not made.
We're virtually done, Curtis, so if you check the record where we are, we have some other ones that we have that we're in the process, we'll be rolling out and announcing. But keep in mind, we have announced a number of the proposed consolidations. In a number of cases, people may stay on, whether for some period of time, until the consolidation may get effectuated by the legislature. As you guys know, if you're consolidating departments, that's not something an executive can do on his own. The executive would propose to the legislature, and we look forward to working with them, collaborating with them to try to bring those efficiencies to bear, and I'm very hopeful that they'll see that favorably. I said 2:30, it's 2:29. Any last questions that people have?
You mentioned three areas that were causing this structural deficit: PEI, Medicaid, and schools. Are those areas that you're looking at for cuts?
I am looking at the entirety of the budget, and I want to put West Virginia first, and that means setting priorities that are going to help our state grow, to make sure that we have an improved standard of living, that our kids have the best possible education, and we're meeting the demands and functions of state government. So as I mentioned to you, we're in the process of working to put our budget together. It'd be premature to talk about any of that now, but I really wanted to talk about where we start on January 13th and what we've inherited. We've inherited a $400 million projected deficit beginning January 13th. Now we begin the hard work of addressing those issues. With that, I'll say thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. A couple quick notes. I know I do plan to go to the Trump inauguration, so we'll let you know if there's anything that comes out of that, but we're excited about that. Thank you.